And then around like noontime or 11, sometime like that, the women were cooking and everything like that. And then so we started coming back towards the church, and now we were playing inside the church, or just making jokes and all that stuff. And then we heard rocks being thrown at the church.
Hmm.
And at the time I didn't know it was rocks. It's just it's an iron sheet on top of the building, and then you could hear just, it seems like rocks that were being thrown. And then when we went outside, that's when it was like, dang, there's actually rocks being thrown. And now this is the first
Could
time.
you see the people throwing them at that time?
Yeah, at that
How
time.
far
So,
were they from
because
the?
it was kind of far, but not super far. And when I saw them, I went back inside the church because there was people painted with like their faces painted, machetes, and just charging towards the church, you know. And once I saw that, and they were throwing rocks, they're like, whatever. And then a bunch of other people came inside the church too, myself and.
So you immediately recognized, okay, that's severe danger.
Yeah, it's scary. Like my
Yeah.
intuition was like, this is not good.
Yeah.
You need to go back inside the church. Went inside, and then everybody else was coming. And at the same time, people were screaming. They're like, oh, like it was crazy. Went back inside the church, and then I was with my siblings at the time. But this is where we got separated now, because at that time I didn't know where they went. Like I was inside the church, and then other people came, and it was like packed to where we couldn't, like I couldn't move around. And I'm 11, so I'm young.
Yeah.
And then now it's older people too, women in there. The man, I believe, went to also face them and go towards them, but I didn't see any of that. This is some of the things that I found out later on. Once we got inside the church, they locked. We had these two main doors that open up.
Mm-hmm.
They locked those doors, and then they put the people.
The people attacking from,
the people
from the
attacking,
outside?
correct.
Oh.
Yeah, they locked it, and the church was made out of like there was wood around it, like around the church. So they locked it, and then they put people's bikes on the main doors, so you couldn't open the doors. And then on the sides, they took the mattresses that I mentioned people brought, and then they like pretty much placed them around the church, and then they put gas, kerosene, and then they lit it on fire. And then I just remember people screaming. At first, I didn't even see the fire. It was just like people screaming, and then that's when they said that the church had been put on, like set on fire. And then now it's like everybody's trying to get out. But remember, the main doors where we come from, they're locked, so we can't even get out. They had some windows. Some of them were open, so people were able to jump out outside the windows. But by the time I was getting out, or it was like towards the end, and I think that's why I was burnt. Like I was one of the people that was badly burned. It was a few of us that were burned. So 4, including myself, and then there was an older lady too that was badly burned. And so for me, I came outside the church towards the end of the fire. And the reason like my hands got burnt and none of my other sides is because things were falling off now by the time I was leaving. So I was protecting myself from the fire, and that's why my head got burned, because things were just falling off, and everything was hot, and I'm trying to make my way. And at some point it was like I'm trying to make my way, and people are stepping over me, people are trying to get out and whatnot. So by the time I got outside the church, I was one of the last few people. I always say it was a miracle how I got out, because I remember I was inside, screaming. You see, it's like orange, red, color, smoke, all that stuff. And then the next thing, I'm outside the church, and it was like, I almost felt like I got picked up. And, it was, and I think that's why I'm also grateful so much about life, because it's like, I could have been dead. Anything could have happened at that moment.
What do you think? Because I know your book, you talk about that pivotal moment where I do not know how I got out of here. What do you think what does your gut say?
I always say that I always attribute that to like a bigger calling over my life. Like I don't know what it is. I'm probably living in it right now, but I always just think that, because the way my life has panned out, like it's pretty good. Like with everything that happened,
So divine intervention got you out of the church.
Yeah,
That's
I would
awesome.
say that, there's a higher power out there. I attribute it to God that, he did that because he has a reason behind that. I don't know it, but it has to do with my purpose.